Air Chief Marshal V.R. Chaudhary, Chief of the Air Staff, Admiral R. Hari Kumar, Chief of Naval Staff, esteemed former chiefs, respected veterans, Director of the Center for Land Warfare Studies, distinguished speakers and participants from India and abroad, defense attaches, service officers, ladies and gentlemen. I extend a hearty welcome to you all at the PRAGYAN CONCLAVE 2022. I wish to thank the distinguished speakers and participants for being with us today and sharing their thoughts on the subject, future warfare. Your presence has added value to our efforts. The need to appreciate the future environment and comprehend the imperatives for the armed forces is something that the uniformed fraternity and the think tanks must constantly be seized of. It is this fundamental understanding that sets the wheels in motion for future capability development. As wars of the future shall continue to be a whole of nation effort, the topic today, contours of future wars and countermeasures, has significance for a wide range of stakeholders. In the last PRAGYAN conclave that was held in March 2020, we had discussed the various nuances of the rapidly changing character of war. Those were the early days of the pandemic. Unfolding events over the past 2 years have reinforced much of what was discussed during that session. This webinar takes the discourse further in the same vein. I would like to briefly share some thoughts on today's theme. The paradigm shift in warfare is well acknowledged. We are witnessing conflicts increasingly transcending time, space, and force dimensions and enveloping new frontiers. These wars blur the distinction between combatants and non-combatants, front and rear, often avoid directory military engagements, and resort to extensive use of proxy actors. There are ongoing hostilities between states in the cyber, information, subconventional, and hybrid domains without a formal pronouncement of war. There is no M-Day or D-Day, as has been the case earlier. These, along with diplomatic, informational, and economic coercive activities, are already being prosecuted in the gray zone. The aim remains to incapacitate the adversary, disintegrate his sources of power, and render command and control systems ineffective, so as to make the physical forces redundant. We have also observed some nations challenging the globally accepted norms and the rules-based order. This challenge has manifested in various forms of creeping aggression and opportunist actions to alter the status quo, keeping the threshold below all-out war. Developments in Afghanistan have again brought to focus the use of proxies and non-state actors to decisive effects. These actors thrive on local conditions, innovatively exploit low-cost options to devastating impact, and create conditions that limit the full use of sophisticated capabilities which are available to the state. The concept of sequential and often graduated application of force has also undergone significant changes. I have said this in the past, and I wish to reiterate that in future conflicts, the troops on the forwardmost locations, ready and in a high state of alertness, may not be the ones to face the first wave of aggression. Military doctrines and concepts have struggled to keep pace with this change and stay relevant. The military lexicon has expanded and traditional definitions have undergone a review. The concept of victory itself has changed, as enduring success especially against non-state actors, has remained elusive for most. However, if we go back in time, we would realize that even though there have been transformative changes in the way wars have been prosecuted over time, the nature of war in terms of force and violence, blood and gore has not changed. Why do I mention this? It is because sometimes in our zeal to look at the future, we forget the lessons that the past brings to us. These defining constituents, force and violence, have not gone away, but have only manifested in newer forms. It is for this reason that hard power has always been relevant and will continue to play an important part in the future, albeit in new ways, adapting to the changing strategic context. This is also one of the reasons why ancient Indian wisdom on statecraft and application of force, propounded many centuries ago, remains timeless and pertinent even today. I must share with you that the armed forces have taken on this exploratory project of examining the relevance of ancient Indian wisdom and knowledge to contemporary security challenges. In a national seminar conducted on this subject last week by the College of Defense Management, it came out loud and clear that the basic tenets espoused in Chanakya's Arthashastra and Thiruvalluvar's Kural, amongst others, still hold great significance in contemporary times. In our own present context, the ceasefire on the line of control continues to hold because we have negotiated from a position of strength. The developments on our northern borders have also adequately underscored the requirement of ready and capable forces with an optimal component of boots on ground backed by modern technology to preserve our sovereignty and integrity. Any discussion on the future contours of war will have an overbearing tilt towards modern technologies. This is obvious because almost all modern technology tools have the potential for military application and a disruptive impact on modern day warfare. This change is already making traditional core competencies irrelevant and creating the necessity of acquiring new proficiencies. The Israel-Hamas conflict last year has firmly underscored the power of artificial intelligence. The more recent strikes last month on the UAE by Yemen's Houthi rebels using armed drones and missiles reflect the rapid proliferation of these disruptive technologies to a wide range of actors. The mid-air interception of incoming missiles by the UAE and US forces stationed there is equally defining. Improved situational awareness, fusion of sensors, faster decision-making, use of autonomous weapons, and integration of artificial intelligence into every facet of warfare will necessitate changes to war fighting doctrines, our organizations and structures, and not to forget our training methodology and leadership. For militaries across the world, as well as for us, this remains an ongoing challenge and a work in progress. From an Indian perspective, we face unique, substantial, and multi-domain challenges. Disputed borders with nuclear neighbors, coupled with state-sponsored proxy war, stretches our security apparatus and resources. Our adversaries shall continue with their efforts to achieve their strategic aims short of conflict by use of grey zone activities in the political, military, and economic domains, and do so in a collusive manner. The events in 2020 have been testimony to the diversity of security threats in all domains, and this has brought the spotlight towards non-contact and grey zone warfare. We need to identify the main drivers of military technology in the digital era of warfare to improve effectiveness, augmenting our capabilities in both the non-contact and contact modes of warfare. The Indian Army has already initiated adequate modernization efforts to acquire these technologies. So what is the way ahead? In order to meet these challenges, the Indian Army, along with the other two services, is undertaking a number of initiatives to stay a step ahead. We are honing our capabilities to undertake multi-domain operations. The focus is to exploit the potential of these domains to create strategic effects on the adversary. The creation of the Defense Cyber Agency, Space Agency, and the Armed Forces Special Operations Divisions are steps to synergize resources and expertise and build integrated capabilities in these domains. Net enablement to fight in a network-centric environment is another area of focus. Our strategic networks, like the Network for Spectrum, ASCON Phase 4, have made significant headway. Efforts towards networking battlefield entities have gained momentum with projects like the software-defined radio, tactical access switch, mobile integrated network terminal, and the terminal end secrecy devices. Enhanced bandwidths and robust spectrum management will contribute manifold to our interoperability and operational efficiency. We are laying great emphasis on innovation and technologies such as quantum computing and communications, artificial intelligence and drone swarms, and military leveraging of emerging and disruptive domains. The 3 R's, restructuring, rebalancing, and reorienting of forces, has already been initiated. We are further consolidating from our operational experiences to these changes, and this shall remain a work in progress. The process of integration of the 3 services through theaterization is already moving ahead to a time-bound plan, and the Indian Army remains totally committed to this transformation. Last but not the least is a commitment to Atmanirbharta, the realization of the concept of an Atmanirbhar army, Atmanirbhar both in thought and action. In the words of India's first Chief of Defence Staff, General Bipin Rawat, and I quote, we would like to be an army that fights and wins its wars with indigenous weapons and equipment, unquote. I would like to conclude my talk by highlighting that we are witnessing trailers of future conflicts. These are being enacted daily on the information battlefield, in the networks and cyberspace. They are also being played along our yet unsettled and active borders. It is for us now to visualize the battlefield contours of tomorrow based on these trailers. If you look around, you will realize that the sci-fi of yesterday is the reality of today. We too have to leapfrog to the future, skipping many stages. Just as a caterpillar mutates into a butterfly and not merely into a bigger and juicier caterpillar. With this as the backdrop, the sessions in the webinar today have been structured for a comprehensive and holistic treatment of the theme. I look forward to the takeaways at the end of the webinar. My best wishes for the proceedings today. Thank you and Jai Hind.